Hey guys, good morning. I'm Shah Gupta, CEO and co-founder of DevSecOps.ai. I've spent more than 17 years into the industry with different companies. So I'm one of the experts in cloud and DevOps. So today we are starting our first session on VPC, Virtual Private Cloud Network Architecture. So what I've seen from my experience is like when people start, they start with the infrastructure into the default VPC, right? So when you look at the default VPC, it has not the right architecture, like no proper NAT gateways, no proper internet gateways, no private subnets, maybe no intra subnets. So guys, this video, I just want to highlight through this video that whenever we are starting our any cloud journey, right, or whenever we starting and developing any app, we should focus on very basic thing, that is our network architecture, right? So it does not matter like whether you are a CTO or CIO or a software developer. So never create your infrastructure into your default VPC, because later on it will create a tech debt and you have to migrate all your workloads from the default VPC to a new VPC whenever you will go for a scaling, or maybe whenever you will understand it. So guys, this is a three-tier VPC architecture. For example, I'm creating my infrastructure into the Mumbai region. So Mumbai has three availability zones: Zone A, Zone B, Zone C. So what do you mean by availability zone? Availability zone meaning is like, for example, something happens to my Kukla West side. So still, I have few data centers available from any cloud so that I can bring my app. So Mumbai has three availability zones, right? So, and what do you mean by three-tier VPC architecture? So three-tier VPC architecture means like we have the public subnets where I will be creating the components where end user can come directly. Private subnets where my machine EC2 should be there, virtual machine should be there, so that no one has access to my machines, virtual VMs. Third is where I will be storing my database or my Redis, so that it contains the data, so it should not have any inbound or outbound connection. Right. So guys, please look at the board, right? So first, whenever we create a VPC, we need to define a CIDR range, right? So this CIDR range should be unique, because later on when you have to do a VPC pairing, right? So you cannot do a VPC pairing if your CIDR range is over that, right? So first, the most critical thing is to choose your CIDR range. So 10.0 is the internal IP CIDR range, right? So whenever you start planning your network architecture, you should start with 10.0 or any internal CIDR range. Never choose a CIDR range which is open to the public, right? Because our components which we are creating, they are like private, so we should choose the internal CIDR range. Now, how will you choose this /19? That is the thing which you need to understand. So /19 means like it has around 8,000 IPs into this VPC, right? So if you think that okay, my scale is pretty huge, right? Then I can go maybe for /16, which has more IP ranges. But every block which is after slash, that has some meaning. So /19 means this VPC will be having 8,000 IPs. Right? Now my architecture is into three availability zones. Three tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And each tier has three availability zones: Zone A, Zone B, Zone C. Right? So what I need to do, I need to divide this CIDR range to each and every subnet into each and every availability zone. Right? So in total, like if I see tier 1 has 3 subnets, tier 2 also has 3 subnets, tier 3 has also 3 subnets, right? So in total, I have 9 subnets, right? So how will I divide this? So if we are saying that tier 1 will contain only the public IPs, right? So what are the public components, right? Maybe it can be a load balancer, right? So maybe like some end user will come to my network, come to my application, which is exposed by a public load balancer, and they will hit it directly, right? So how will you choose the CIDR range of tier 1? That is the first point. And tier 3, we are saying that is reserved for inter subnets, where we will be creating the databases, creating the Redis, right? So there is no like inbound and outbound connection. So how will you choose the tier 3 CIDR range? And tier 2. Now in tier 2, we need to provision our virtual machines, right? So it means that all my application will be running on my virtual machines, all my backend APIs, front-end APIs. If I'm going for a very highly scalable architecture based on Kubernetes or maybe on a Docker or a containerization, right, then my application needs to scale. So you have seen like many use cases where the application needs to handle maybe 10,000 requests per second or 20,000 requests per second. So in this scenario, you need to build a very highly scalable architecture. So you need more and more IPs for each and every container, right? So that's how you will choose your tier 2 CIDR range. So in tier 1, what it means is, for example, like if I go for a /24, right? What it means is it contains 256 IPs in one subnet, right? So it means like I can create maybe around 256 load balancers. So each and every load balancer will take one IP from one availability zone. So if I have like I'm creating 256 load balancers, so I think 256 load balancers are more than enough, right, to handle my complete traffic, right? So that I've chosen /24 for my one zone 1A and subnet 1, right? The same thing like for zone B also I'm choosing /24, zone 3 also I've chosen /24. So each and every subnet has 256 IPs, right? Now my load balancer will be created across multiple zones, so that my application would be highly available. So each and every load balancer will be having 3 IPs, one IP from each availability zone, or one IP from each subnet, right? So it means that in public tier 1, if I have a /24 CIDR range, I can create around 256 load balancers. So I think 256 load balancers are more than enough, so I can choose 24 CIDR range, right? So how will I divide it, right? So for example, like I give 750 IPs to my tier 1, 750 IPs to my tier 3, and maybe 6000 IPs to my tier 2, right? So now you can see in tier 3, I have the intra subnets, right? So I'll be having databases, Redis, right? So to support a very big scale of application, even if I create like 120 databases, 150 databases, these are more than enough. So I can choose the CIDR range as /24 into the tier 3, into the intra subnets. And then I can get maybe a couple of like 10, 15, 20 Redis, right, to handle all my traffic. So that's why I've chosen /24 as a CIDR range into the intra subnets, right? Now comes to the tier 2, right? So tier 2 is like where my application will be running, my containers will be created, my ports will be created, right? And I need a very highly scalable application. So my application can scale up to maybe to handle 10,000 requests per second, right? So maybe I need to spin up like maybe hundreds of containers, or maybe 200 of containers for one app. And if I'm running multiple microservices, like I'm running 20, 30 microservices, so maybe I can go up to like hundreds of, if I multiply 20, 30 microservices with the 50 number, so maybe 1000, 2000 IPs will be more than sufficient to handle this kind of a scale. So that's why I've chosen /24, one which contains 2000 IPs into each and every subnet, and the total IP range for this tier is 6000 IPs, right? So each and every subnet has 2000 IPs, right? So my each and every application is getting scaled across each availability zone, so that my application is highly available, right? And all the IPs which are assigned to the ports, right, they are also, the IPs can be assigned to my ports, and my ports can be scaled up to like 100, 200 in number to handle maybe 20,000 RPS, 30,000 RPS, 25,000 RPS, right? So that's how you have to divide the VPC CIDR range into the different CIDR ranges for each and every subnet, right? Now, what is tier 1? Why we are calling it tier 1 or public tier? Because it has a public IP, right? What it means is it has an internet gateway, right? So what internet gateway does, it creates an inbound and outbound connection with the external world. So this tier has the internet gateway. Anyone from the outside or any user from the outside can come and talk to this subnet, or this subnet can go and talk to any application over the internet, right? So that's why we are calling it public tier or tier 1. Why it is private, right? So there is no inbound. There is no inbound to this tier. Okay. Only there is a NAT gateway, which is here, and this subnet will talk to the outside world through this NAT gateway. Okay. So basically, any application which is running on this VM, that will talk to the outside world over internet through this NAT gateway. So that's why it's called a private subnet, right? Now comes the intra subnets. So intra subnet, there is no inbound, there is no outbound. Okay. So there is no inbound, there is no outbound. What it means is, so no one from the outside world can come to the subnet, and no one, and this subnets cannot go and talk to any application over internet. Right? Since my database is like very secure, my database should be very secure, right? Because it contains my customer data, my company data, right? So nobody should have access to this data, right? There should be no connection over the internet. So that's why we are provisioning it into the intra subnet. So there is no inbound and outbound connection. Okay, and there is no internet gateway and no NAT gateway, right? So that is the point. So whenever you start deploying your application, start preparing any infrastructure, even you do not know any cloud, right? Do not worry, just follow this network architecture, right? And then everything will fall in place. Later on, you can scale, right? So basically, you should prepare this network architecture with the proper CIDR ranges. You will not run out of the IPs, right? So what I've seen also is like I was working for a company, right? That is a very big company. What they did, they created a VPC CIDR range of only like 2,000 IPs. And what they did, they gave 500 IPs to the tier 1, 500 IPs to the tier 2, and maybe like 500 IPs to the tier 2, and 1,000 IPs to the tier 3. So basically what they did, they didn't have IPs to scale. So the people deployed a couple of applications. After that, they ran out of the IPs, and then we were struggling to figure out like how we can make how can we deploy application into this particular tier, into this particular subnet. And being a very big company, I mean, they already whitelisted this particular subnet range from their on-prem. So it was becoming a bottleneck, right? Because this subnet was only whitelisted from their on-prem application, and they were running some legacy application on the on-prem. And because of not choosing the right CIDR range for their tier 2 or tier 3 subnets, I mean, we were blocked. We didn't have any mechanism through which, like, we could deploy our application onto the subnet and then make it running and could make the connection with the on-prem. We figured out the solution. We did a VPC pairing of this, like we created another VPC, then we did a VPC pairing, created a private thing. So that was another story. But the idea is, whenever you are starting your cloud journey, start with the right network architecture. So later on, you do not end up messing up your whole infrastructure, whole applications, right? And you do not create a tech debt, right? So guys, thank you. Thank you so much. So guys, just to explain it further, let me take a layman terms example, right? For example, I'm in tier 1, right? So maybe person A has to talk to me and I have to talk to person B. So person A is coming and talking to me. So he is coming through my inbound connection, right? Now I'm going and talking to the other person over internet. So that is my outbound. So I'm in tier 1. So people can come and talk to me inbound. I can go and talk to people. That is my outbound. That is my tier 1. Now, for example, assume I'm in tier 2, right? So I'm in tier 2. So the person from the outside world cannot come and talk to me. So my inbound is not there. Okay, try to understand. So basically, the person who is coming from outside world, he cannot come and talk to me, right? But I can go and talk to any other people over internet. So I'm in tier 2. So there is no inbound, but there is an outbound. Now, if I'm in tier 3, the person from the outside world cannot come and talk to me. Also, I cannot go and talk to any other person. That is tier 3, right? But tier 1 resources can talk to tier 2. Tier 1 resources can talk to tier 3 resources because they are into the same VPC, right? So, for example, I have created a jump host in tier 1. Right now, through this jump host, I want to access my database, which is into tier 3. So, through the jump host, I can access my database if I open the security of my database. Right now, if I'm in tier 2, in which my application is running, I need to connect to the database, which is in tier 3. I can go and connect to my database. If I'm in tier 2, I can go and talk to the tier 3 resources because they are under the same VPC. But the person from the outside world cannot come and talk to me if I'm in tier 2. I can go and talk to the person through the NAT gateway, right? If I'm in tier 2. And if I'm in tier 3, no one can from the outside world can come and talk to me. And also I cannot go and talk to the other person.